Before we start. Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to the Western Weber County Planning Meeting for November 1st. Not much on our agenda tonight, but we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Looks like Commissioner McCormick and Commissioner Edwards are not available tonight. They're excused. So let's see. Are we going to do the training before the minutes? Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do the training then, Liam. The floor is yours.
Be relatively painless and brief. Hopefully, this is the same training that Ogden Valley Planning Commission received. And this is just the training that deals with motions. Why motions are important, how we make them, what our rules of order say, that kind of thing. So pretty basic. So let's start with, we can get this to work. Me and June were playing with this earlier and we had it working. So let's look at some ineffective handling of motions. And you can tell me if it's ineffective, right?
It's a test right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Bang.
Next item, resolution determining trustee position vacant.
I guess I'll make that motion
Okay, motion made by trustee Ramirez-Lewinsky,
for discussion.
we're waiting for a second.
Hear that okay?
Still waiting for a second.
You ought to know you're not going to get one.
It dies.
You already made your speech, and so we don't want to hear it again, to be real honest with you.
So it
So you're not going to get a second.
dies for lack of a second. It dies for,
I understand, trustee Seigwald.
well, how long are you gonna wait? I'm just asking a question. How long are you gonna wait?
Yeah, well. I'm still waiting for a second. Still waiting for a second.
I'll second it.
How long you have to wait?
Thank you, Wayne. Because it's pretty painful to watch. So this goes on for a little while. We're gonna fast forward here just a little bit.
Make a motion as it does.
Um,
Okay, is there?
Nobody will second his motion.
For abuse.
We call the question.
We're not calling the question. We're talking about this matter here because
Call the question. He's got a right to call the question.
he's got a right to call the question, but I'm just saying that I also have a right to
No,
respond.
you don't have a right to do what's not legal. This has not been seconded.
What's
which
not
shouldn't be any
legal is what this
discussion.
board does every
was no
every
second.
2 weeks.
There's
And
no
There was a
discussion.
second. There was a second.
There was a second to can this thing.
And move on.
Not to backdoor
that may have been what
discussion.
your interpretation was of the second, but that's not what the second was.
Really, I did the
Yes.
seconding, and I seconded trustee Sigwald's motion to,
To move on.
die for lack of a second, so we were moving on. So
Yes.
that's what the second was. The second was
And
not
we're
for initial.
discussing,
and-
the lack of a second.
We had discussion by trustee Ramirez-Lewinsky. We got our lecture. Now, trustee Humfer called the question. He has every right to call the question. And Robert's Rules of Order is when you call the question,
not-
there is no more discussion.
We're not
You call
operating
the
under
vote.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh, because it's convenient to you now.
No, because we have our own rules.
Wait. Trustee Sardo is correct. We don't operate under Robert's rules, but our rules,
President Sardo, thank you.
I'm sorry, President Sardo, but our rules do indicate that when you call the question, that issue is non-debatable.
Right. It ends
So you
discussion.
do have to, under your rules, call the, for the vote. The vote is to determine whether or not there's been sufficient debate on the issue of determining that there's been no second.
Thank you for the clarification, Attorney Rhodes.
That goes on for a little while. Eventually, the chair, this individual here with the mouth, he gets up and walks away. Because nobody will second his motion or the motion that was made. There is no second. And so he has a little speech, gets mad at the board, gets up and walks away. And then the rest of the board is just sitting there and they kind of look at each other. So I guess in comparison, you guys make my job as the attorney really pretty easy in comparison what this attorney had, because that was a mess and it was kind of hard to watch. So it's just an example of, right, an ineffective handling of emotion, right? And a lot of that's the fault of the chair. So why do motions matter? They describe the official action of the public body, right? And if you make a mistake, the action can be void. And ultimately, this is what the court's going to review if the motion is challenged, right? The court's going to say, what did the motion state? What was made in the motion? They don't get to look at what the subjective intent was or what somebody meant to say or what could be implied. They look at what the motion actually consisted of. That's why the motions are important. So here's an example from Michigan. We have a Utah example coming up as well. Right, so city planning commissioners, there were some buildings going in downtown. They made a motion and they decided to recommend that the city commission approve the site plan. But the city commissioners, they don't vote on site plan. And so the motion said that, well, we recommend that the city commissioners approve. And the motion is then void because the city commissioners don't actually approve or vote on site plans. So the motion in and of itself was no good. It was a void motion. So they had to go back, revisit that, restate the motion at another meeting, make the motion over again. Okay, simple example. Here's one from Moab. All right, so here we have petitioners who wanted a conditional use permit, right? And the council said, no, you don't get your conditional use permit. And in their motion, they didn't state why they were denying the conditional use permit, right? It was just a denial. Nope, no conditional use permit. And what's the problem with that? I'm sure we all know. Conditional use permits generally have to be approved unless there's a valid reason articulated why they're denying the conditional use permit. And they didn't state one. So the petitioner says, hey, court, I want you to look at my denial of the conditional use permit and I want it to be found to be approved. And so the court did look at it and they said, hey, the problem is there was this fact-finding body never found any facts, right? They were supposed to, they didn't. You guys got to go back and actually state on the record why you're denying it and the reason for doing it. And if you're not going to have any reasons, they're not going to state the reasons, then you have to be simple as that. So what are the common motions that you as the board members have before you often? Approve, deny, table, amend, adjourn, kind of things. Some other motions from our rules of order: fix the time to adjourn, refer to committee, call the question. Oh, this is what they were talking about in that YouTube video as well. Somebody wanted to call the question. That means just close the debate, end it. No more discussion, no more waiting for that second, just end the debate. Limit the debate, take a recess, call for orders of the day, suspend rules, appeal ruling, reconsider. So there's a variety of things in our rules of order. In the YouTube video we watched, somebody says, well, that's not how Robert's Rules of Order works. One individual says, well, we don't operate under Robert's Rules of Orders. And there was some discussion there. And we have our own planning commission rules of order, and they're kind of based on and similar to Robert's Rules of Order. But Robert's Rules of Order don't control for your purposes in this Okay, we got some basics there. The chair doesn't make a motion. Any commissioner can second, and if no second, the motion's gonna die. Questions so far? Are we good? Yep. Right. Right. Okay, so just more basics, right? We have to state the action, which really is important to do. State the findings, supporting the action, why you're doing it, and include the conditions. Staff report, right? Staff always does a really good job in their staff report of stating the conditions, if there are any conditions. Staff report, even everything staff report does is always excellent and always thorough. And that's why it is easy to just refer back to the staff report in your motion and approve or deny based upon the conditions given in the staff report. And the staff report is always clear. Rick and his team does an excellent job with the staff report. So the examples, right? We approve the application based on the findings listed in the staff report with the conditions listed in the staff report. Boom, there it is. Or you can get in a little bit more detail. And I've seen this board do it both ways. Sometimes you reference the staff report just outrightly. Other times you've given your own version of what the staff report states. You kind of give some rhetoric about it. And then you reference the staff report as well. So you kind of have some discretion to do that.
In referencing the staff report, does it need to be read?
The staff report does not need to be read, but it needs to be identified.
Right,
That you
okay.
identify the particular staff report.
Thank you.
But if Rick or if you, Andrew, prefer to have the staff report read for the purpose of the motion, that's fine too.
Okay. I just was wondering if there was something for the public to hear it or something along.
And
those
that's always beneficial. And it is always beneficial.
Yeah, if there's a lot of public here, it's good to read that so that they're aware of it because they don't have that right in front of them. But if there's not, just for sake of time, it's just reference the staff report.
Thank you.
Denials, just state your reasons for the denials, write the findings for them. Because denials often result or can result in the appeal. And so we need to be very careful why we deny them. There's withdrawing a motion. So you can withdraw your motion. Basic stuff here. I'm not going to read every line in there, but if you have a question, let me know. And we can always make this available to you. Friendly amendments, right? So this is interesting. The commissioner may make a friendly amendment without a formal motion with unanimous consent of the members present. So such motions are appropriate for cleanup items or an issue discussed but inadvertently neglected by the maker of the motion. So we often have friendly amendments to the motions that we do in here, and that's fine. We can do that. Other amendments, they're not just the typical cleanup kind of amendment. Those kind of require a motion in a second. Go ahead. Yep. So after the motion. Yes, so usually after somebody will make the motion, if somebody picks up on an item that was missed or something that was misstated before the vote, yes. After the motion is made, I don't know that our rules of order specify, do they specify exactly when that needs to occur? Right before the vote, right, so I don't think we get that particular in our rules of order.
So Liam, on that same subject, kind of, some of the other committees I've been on, when you make a motion and then during the discussion, if you change your mind or have different thoughts, you can't speak against your own motion. Is that true?
Correct, so
Okay.
you would have to, you can withdraw a motion.
Okay, so you can still withdraw it during the discussion part if you're
Right.
the one that made the motion.
Yep, and so if you change your mind, you need to withdraw.
Okay.
Yeah, so if he withdraw, if Casey withdrew his motion, then we would need another motion. the chair would have to ask for another motion.
Which could be the same motion. It's just
Yes.
if I'm withdrawing my own. Okay.
Yep, somebody could make the same motion.
We could make these meetings go on for a long time.
We should just to mess with Brent.
There's motions to reconsider an item that you already voted on, right? In the same meeting. This is rarely done. In fact, I don't know that I've ever seen this board do this. But it is possible. If you voted on the prevailing side, however the issue came out, and then it has to be seconded, kind of just reopens that question. So I don't know. Have you ever seen that done, Rick? Okay, we allow for it in our rules of order, but I don't know that it's ever really happened.
Well, that's good to know because there was one time that I would have liked to have had back.
Oh, really? Well, now you know going forward. So then on the voting for the motion, the chair announces the vote, secretary records them. No changing the vote after the decision's been announced. No abstaining, which is an interesting one, right? So unless there's a conflict of interest or you're not present during the discussion of the item, you can't just abstain. I think we've talked about this one in the past as well.
We had that come up one time. I think that Mr. Wilson was with us then at that particular meeting and yeah.
Okay, yep, that's an interesting one.
Mhm.
So Liam, I'm assuming if you do abstain, then you need to explain why.
Yeah, so if you do want to abstain, usually we ask for an explanation of why you're going to abstain. And you can always just state conflict of interest, just so it's on the record, clear, and move on. Tie vote is a failure for the motion. After the vote, you're welcome to explain your decision. No proxy voting on this board. Okay, that takes us to the end.
All right.
So. Right. Pretty basic, our rules of order, read them if you haven't read them. Or read them again if you haven't read them in a long time. They are very well written and give good direction on motions and the whole procedure. Any questions? All right.
You did well.
No questions, then thanks. That's more than I usually say in a meeting. So we're good.
Thanks, Liam. Appreciate that. Next item on our agenda is the minutes from October 18th. I didn't see anything. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the minutes? Okay. I'll entertain a motion. We have to motion this, right? Or can we just approve them?
You can just approve
We'll
them.
just move to approve the minutes from October 18th. Okay, very good. All right, public comments for item not on tonight's, for items not on our agenda tonight. Anybody want to address the commission? Okay. All right, planning commissioners, any remarks?
I have one.
Okay,
Of course I do. The book. I'd like to say I've read it all, but I haven't. But I found this very pertinent. Some of the things that'll be before this body. There's some issues in affordable housing. The thing that I liked about this most was the smart development section, so it's very well worth looking at that. In fact, it motivated me to get on Google, which is dangerous, and read a little more about it. So anyway, picked up this book, and if you can't sleep at night, get a book like this. You'll last about maybe 3 pages. So it's good for insomnia. But there's some very good stuff in there, and it's quite complex. So it'll probably take me another 40 years to finish reading it. But thank you for sending me down. It was well worth the time. Thank you.
You know, my comments were about the training as well. And I've had some of that nighttime reading and found some great stuff too that actually kept me up. But just seeing the whole vision of not just Weber County, but piecing in how Weber County fits into Utah. I think a couple of points that I think helped my vision a little bit better was there, when it comes to public transportation, it doesn't work without high density. Now, we don't have a major public transportation hub in Weber County. So we do need high density, but maybe not public transportation style of density, because it's going to be a very long time before we get some very serious public transportation in Weber County. However, businesses also do not survive without some very serious density. And the Utah vision is to keep parts of Utah a little less dense, and then just focus on making sure that where we're being dense, we're being thoughtful about it so that we can make sure that we provide the infrastructure and provide the utilities and everything we need in those areas. So focus on filling in Utah rather than sprawling Utah, which is the smart growth principles that I'm sure you're talking about. And so that just helped clarify for me, and just thinking about, okay, where do we want that density in Weber County? Because we need affordable housing, and that comes at a certain higher density. I think the biggest dilemma I see that I was so glad at the end of the meeting when I was there, someone asked the $1 million question, and I don't know how we answer it or how we address it, but we can limit regulation, we can limit fees, we can do all sorts of things from a planning standpoint. But how do we see that money goes into reducing the cost of the homes and not into the developer and the landowner's pockets? Now, I think we need developers, but we had some developers up on stage that someone had asked that question and said, hey, if we as a planning body reduce all these fees for you, how do we make sure that reduces the cost of housing, when essentially the housing market regulates itself? You know, the housing market isn't saying how much of your fees, it's saying what is the market value. And I don't know how to address that. I think there are some creative ways maybe we can do that to make sure that developers want to develop in Weber County and that we are creating affordable housing. So
Yeah, there's some really creative ways, especially working through our economic development department. You know, when we're looking at creating PIDs, public infrastructure districts, or special improvement districts, however those are set up, it talks about how that's reinvested back into the community. So there's definitely ways in which we can accomplish that. One thing I like about the ULI conference too is that it brings in the developer and the real estate people's perspective, which I think is very important, because oftentimes we get caught in the planning process, but we don't think about that side of it, which is huge. I mean, that's important. And that's one thing that I've always emphasized in our department, is that the developer's time is money. And sometimes, you know, we're not able to get them as quickly through as we would like, but we always try to do that. And that's a very important element of the whole process.
Commissioners? Well, yeah, I attended the conference. Wayne and I went to the same one on Tuesday, and it was more about water. And there was a lot of interesting information that was given to that, given to us at that part of the meeting. And interesting. The second part of the meeting was about, you know, how to save the Great Salt Lake. And then we had a kind of a follow-up meeting to that a little later in the week, with some representatives from the state. That is also kind of interesting. It's, you know, it's a very serious thing. The main thing that I've taken out of all of it, though, and I think, and I hope that our bureaucracy doesn't lose sight of, is that once we get through all of this and spend a lot of money on it, that the water actually gets to the body of the lake. And, you know, and I think also that the other thing that I took out of it, and this is my own perspective, and that is time is of the essence. We're losing more and more of that lake every day. So, you know, those two things kind of clash when you enter into bureaucratic situations like that. And I'm not trying to undermine the participation of everyone in the process, but at the same time, I think that some decisions, some stark decisions need to be made soon, very quickly. Anyway, but on top of that, hopefully we'll just get 5 or 6 good winners in a row and we won't have to worry about it for a while. But anyway, so commissioners, anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Grover, anything else? Liam? Okay. All right. Then I'll take a motion to adjourn to the work session.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Are we going to the back room or are we going to stay here? Okay. All right, very good. Oh, not good. All right, so we're in our work session now. WS1 discussion regarding moderate housing income.
Right. I don't think I have I talked with you guys before? I know we've been met a couple weeks ago in that other room. My name is Phil Kobe. I am the new planner here at the county. I'm grateful to be here. When we had this discussion with the Ogden Valley Planning Commission, it started with a little bit of a history of moderate income housing legislation in the state. And it really starts back with 2005 or 6 timeframe when the LUMA was passed. And at that time, the state legislature gave cities and counties a list of things that they could choose from to include in their moderate income housing element of their general plan. Before that point, an element addressing moderate income housing was not required, but it is now. So as a result, we have these menu items to choose from, these strategies that need to be implemented. In 2018, SB 34 required cities to adopt at least 3 of those strategies into their moderate income housing and really start working on them. And then each year they were supposed to report back to the state on what had been accomplished in achieving those goals or strategies. And but it didn't really have any teeth in it. The strategies were worded in such a way that there weren't really action. That all changed this spring when the legislature passed HB 62, which changed the language of state statute to require the strategies that you see on the comprehensive. What we've done as staff is go through the general plan for Ogden Valley and for West Weaver. And we pulled out those specific items that address the strategies as they were adopted this past spring. And you guys in West Weaver are a little bit ahead of the game in that you had already identified which strategies were associated with which housing plan type elements. And so thank you to Charlie on that. But what I've done in this is make it applicable to both the Ogden Valley and to Western Weaver. This is part of a report that is going to go to the state once it's adopted. And we will probably adopt this as an amendment or an addendum to the general plan for both places. And then get this approved by the county council. So having said all of that, any questions on any of that so far? Clear as mud. Okay, perfect. You see these different strategies. These, like I said, on page 1, these are, and part of page 2, these are the different strategies as adopted by the Western Weaver. You see how I've broken those down into the different applicable strategies. What I'm asking for, and this is more of a homework assignment similar to the one that Charlie gave you guys last time. Well, hopefully this won't take a whole lot of your time. What I've done is And where I would like to focus your attention is on the implementation timelines for each strategy. So if you look on page 2, there is the implementation. It starts with the implementation plan for each of the above strategies is outlined below. And then so that you've got a recital of the strategy, where it's located in the general plan, and then what I'm proposing as the implementation timeline. Now, I want to tell you my mindset on this, and it's going to cover 2 basic points. The first is I'm married to my wife, not any of this language. So if there's anything in this language that you don't like or need to be revised, please feel free to let me know. The second thing is, and the basic guiding philosophy in this is that I want to keep these timelines somewhat, say loose, but somewhat open-ended, so that the timeline as they go through both easily be reported on, but also follow the timeline that property owners and developers need and want for their properties and developments. So there are some things that the county does have control over, like introducing and passing new ordinances regarding things like transfers of development rights and zoning laws and things like that. And we can do those things, and those are reflected in their various strategies. But some of these things are dependent on when property wants to get developed in the county, if and when that ever happens. The county doesn't have a whole lot of control over that, so it seems difficult at best to put a timeline to something we don't have any control over. Those things we simply will report on development as it occurs. And so we'll get back to the state and say, look, the market conditions were thus and such, therefore we arrived at this number of acres or this number of units that were changed, and these are the number of TDRs that were approved and applied for and moved through the process. Accessory dwelling units came up in the Ogden Valley, and we talked about how we can make those the legislation easier for that, but then whether or not someone comes in and applies for one is up to the individual property owner. So these are all things that we're going to work through, and that's why I left it open-ended like I did, because it allows some flexibility, but also allows us to report in meaningful ways back to the state in the future years. Okay. I get excited about these things. We talk about falling asleep reading that book. I would be riveted, and it's a page turner for a geek like me. I talk really fast when I get excited about things. So, are there any questions? So what I'd like you to do is look through each of these strategies as outlined in these things and look at the implementation timeline, and please see if there's anything that doesn't grab you or stand out to you as problematic. Again, I tried to keep it as general as possible, but if you see something that is either needed to be tightened up and or in need of other revision, please do let me know, and we'll get those changes done.
So 2 questions. As we go through this, I see that the Western Weaver plan is designated and the Ogden Valley plan is designated. Do we just need to pay because of being on the Western plan, the Western Planning Commission? Is that the one that we need to look at specifically, or do we need to look at the whole thing overall, including the Ogden Valley? I mean, what's your...
My preference would be to get as much feedback as possible. Okay. So if you have the time and are willing to look at all of those, that would be great.
Then the other question is, are we using the version 1.3, the draft version of the new general plan?
This was the most recent plan that was made available to me.
Okay.
So
is that the one that it is then?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't see it referenced. So if it
in
was,
fact, I started with a general plan version that was not the version. So I've actually had to redo this and just finished it yesterday. So
okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, commissioners?
Okay, and do reach out if you have any questions or concerns. I'm here for you.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
I do have a question, sorry. Bill,
Okay.
so does it bounce back and forth through Western Weaver County and Ogden Valley through the whole document then?
It kind of does, but some of them, like if you look on page 3, item 3, there are elements from both Ogden, the Ogden Valley Well, that's a typo. It says, or W, that should be. If you notice any typos, please let me know. So Ogden Valley, and then, page 76, you see there's a Western Weaver portion that was addressed in that as well. So there will be some overlap in some of these.
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry.
He's just got an extra V there.
Yeah.
Not really a typo. I'm on your side, Bill.
I appreciate it.
Commissioners, any other questions or concerns?
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Ben. Our next item, WS2, discussion regarding Western Weaver General Plan priorities. Aha. Mr. Ewert.
Thank you.
Is this a new one? Oh, it's printed the other way. Autograph.
Yeah, you get a S for satisfactory for showing up. Oh, who needs a pen?
You're gonna do it twice. June's just gonna color on the back of hers. I want to sit by June.
The coloring was great. So what I'm going to do on the version that I have, I've got Sarah and Cammie's responses. I've also inserted my responses, but I don't want to give mine very much weight as long as we've got more responses from planning commissioners. So I figure what we do here is we just run through it. What I would like to do with you guys is run through it out loud. I'll read the item, and then we'll just start one at a time and have you guys tell us what your weight is. But first, you're going to write them down so you're not being influenced by the person before you. So, and then for our 2-star students, you guys want to go home, you can be dismissed, or you could be here. And actually, I guess we need at least one of you to keep calm. Still nice if you're here, you can just read to us what your responses are. And at the end, what I'll do is, not the end of this meeting, but in the end, I'll average all of them to get our final weighted score and take that to the county commission. Some of these items, you may not be fully privy to what developers are asking for yet. And so I may put some back end weight on some over others, but I'll let you know if I do that before it gets to the county commissioners to have a look at. Okay, so we'll do rapid fire so it doesn't take a super long time for responses, but I'll read it to you. While I'm reading it to you, you guys read it to yourself, put a number in, and then I'll just start with Cammie and you'll just tell me the number. I'll write them down as well, and we'll get moving. And then at the end, I'll have you turn them back into me. If we don't get all the way to the end by the end of the meeting, then we'll, we've got 2 meetings this month, so we can still get for the county commission by the end. Okay.
1 through 5, 5 is the highest, right?
5's the highest.
Or-
Each chapter, each section, each color, you're comparing to itself.
So,
One's the high.
One's the highest.
high.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, did I miss that? Yeah, sorry. One is the highest. One
Means the most.
first
Okay.
priority. Yep. First
I was
priority.
looking at my notes and I'm like,
I'm sorry. Okay, yep, and you're just comparing it to that specific chapter. So for the blues, weight them 1 through 5. For the reds, weight them 1 through 5. And then the land use action item, transportation action items, they may receive a little bit higher weighting in the end because there's some things that really need to be executed there. And probably the community character items will receive a little bit higher weighting as well. Okay, so number 1 is small area planning, and we've gone over what that means and what that is quite a bit. So I'm just going to have you guys put in your numbers rather than read the whole thing to you. As you're thinking it through and putting in your numbers, it's basically where we go on an area by area basis and make mini general plans for those areas. Look at the community character. We describe better the specific community character of that area. When you're done putting a number on it, when I see eye contact from all of you, I'll start with the first.
go ahead. If we get done early, can we move ahead to the next one?
Oh yeah, feel free. I'll just call out what specific numbers we're working on when we do it. Yeah, if you want to add numbers through, that'll make things faster. But so on the very first item, if we have everybody done,
He's done.
oh, Wayne is done. Okay. On the very first item, and Casey, are you done with the very first one? Small area planning? You don't have to be. We can wait a little bit. It's like going out a worksheet in school. I wanted to make it a game like Jeopardy or something like that. Start with Cam. What score did you give number? It's just small area planning.
1.
Casey, 1. Okay. Sarah, 2. Andrew, okay. 3. 3. Okay. Next item, I'm going to read it to you. Support and utilize the Weber County Heritage Foundation and other historic research and preservation groups to document, highlight, and placard historic places. Put your number in. Let's start with Kim.
5.
Casey.
2.
Sarah. Chair.
2.
Community character 1.2.4, pursue preservation of, funding for, and design and reconstruction of historic train stations or historic train station museums along the historic Pacific Railroad, such as the Reese Station and West Weber stations. As soon as you're ready. Oh, you might have already.
5.
5. Casey?
3.
Sarah?
2.
Great. Next one, amend cluster subdivision code, period. Tammy?
2.
2.
Come on now.
Good to have clarity. Community character action item 2.1.2, support existing and future agritourism operations as a means to supplement farming.
4.
3.
Or. Next one, explore other means by which local agricultural operations may remain financially feasible, such as expanding on-site land use ordinances, or excuse me, land use allowances that will help supplement farm income, provided the users are not disharmonious to surrounding areas. Just think about that for a couple seconds. Kim?
3.
2. 3.
4. Next item. First off, we've gotten through 5 or so. You guys are okay with how this is working? Okay. Community character 2.2.1, pursue opportunities to support and create farm-to-table operations such as farmers markets and roadside produce stands in appropriate areas. When determining appropriate areas, evaluate whether there are local food deserts that might be best served by one of these operations. Seconds to think about it.
3.
2. 3.
4. If you're further down the line on the roll call, you can't listen to other people's votes before you make your vote. Okay. Dark sky lighting. You guys know what that's all about. Basically making sure that light is down directed, that you can't see the actual light bulb, just what it's illuminating.
3.
2.
It's either a 1 or a 2 for me because of what I've experienced recently. So someone got broken into in our neighborhood, but only because they left their door unlocked, probably. And so now the whole neighborhood is put on lights that you could land aircraft with. And it's horrible. So I'm torn, 1 or 2. I'll go with 2, but it's a big deal. With the lights that are available nowadays, that's a big deal. So I'll go with 2. 3.
And there's no reason why, under the code, the way it works for residential, the way we already have an ordinance in place for Ogden Valley. If we just directly apply that out west, the way the code works for residential, put as much lights as you want. It just, you can't see the bulb. As long as you can't see the bulb, you light it up as much as you want. Commercial's a little bit different. We do have stricter standards, but they have a lot more incentive to light it up. Maverick told me that they don't need to be super bright, brighter than the gas station across the street. Okay, community character 4.1.1. In areas where minimum lot area changes, consider minimum side setback standards that are the same or substantially similar to those.
4.
3.
3.
3. Okay, 4.1.2, in areas where minimum lot area changes, consider minimum lot width and frontage standards that are. Did I double this one?
With 7.
Great, side setback. Okay, so now we're on width and frontage. Tammy?
4.
3.
3.
3. Great. Last one for community character, continue to pursue geologic hazards assessments for new developments in areas that are within a geologic hazard study area. So I am picking on
3.
Tammy by
You're
coming
fine.
to you first every time. Are you okay with that?
Fine with that.
Skip for me.
If you want, I can start on the other side of it.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
I'm
that'd be
good.
better. 2.
2.
4. I don't know if we discussed this during the general planning process. Everything in Western Weaver is in a high hazard. West Central hazard, which we don't, for liquefaction, which we don't list in our geologic hazards. That is a high risk, even though And that's just because it's a expected outcome. So when people live out there, they should already be aware that it's high hazard risk for action. So when we look at those kinds of things, the only places that we apply geologic hazards reviews to is community facilities like hospitals, schools, and other areas that really need support. It's one of the reasons why that school at Pylon is so far. Okay. We do address floodplain. It's not a geologic hazard. It's a flood hazard, so it's a little bit different. But you're right. And then in the New England Highlands, there's some select areas that are slide areas. Okay. In areas, so actually, we're in land use action items. So we're already done one chapter. Look at 1.1.1. In areas planned for large lots, a lot that is less than 20,000 square feet should not be allowed. We do have some large lot areas out west. I do believe, nope, you're right, we call those in. So, asterisks, you went to high. Okay. Kim?
2.
5.
5.
5.
Okay. 1.2.1, in areas planned for medium-sized lots, the county should consider rezoning property to allow 50,000 square foot lots. Generally, this coincides with the RE zone. A rezone of this nature should only be allowed if smart growth implementation strategies are volunteered by the developer. Yep.
2.
2.
1.
1.
Great.
1.2.2, smaller lot sizes, generally as small as 1/4 of an acre on average, in areas planned for medium-sized lots, could be allowed for master plan communities, lot average subdivisions, connectivity incentivized subdivisions, cluster or conservation subdivisions, and other developments that propose to implement exemplary smart growth principles. There may be benefit to encouraging and incentivizing large acreage master plan development with additional density based on commensurate public benefit both inside and outside of the proposed master plan. Additionally, density should be considered outside.
2.
2. 1.
Action item 1.2.3, in the Uinta Highlands, if located along a major neighborhood or minor collector street, lot width requirements should be at least 100 feet to cut down on street access. Let's go with Kelly.
For me, I'm not sure that I should put a number because I don't really understand the issue. So I don't want to vote for something, I guess, or scale it when I don't really know. Is that a common problem there or?
Well,
But I think the lot size right now.
It's kind of the idea of limited access streets. So along 12th Street, we would rather not see individual driveways emptying out on 12th Street. We'd rather see neighborhood roads doing that. So we're just getting a collection of traffic at single points as opposed to.
Okay.
Kenny?
Great.
I talked over you, Kenny. What was it?
Oh, 3. Sorry.
Okay, 3.
4.
Great.
Great. Mixed use residential. There are a few of them that go into mixed use residential. I'm going to give you just kind of the context of some of them. Create mixed use residential zones, similar development regulatory tool such as form-based code that allows a wide variety of housing options. Allowing for 2, 3, and 4 family building design standard. And establishing. You can take a little more time.
No,
Elaborate in that.
Where are we on, Charlie?
Mixed, sorry, mixed use residential. 1.3.1 and 1.3.
Which one?
This is the first one.
Those are together. Oh, okay.
Yep, both together, yes.
1.
2.
2.
To our star students who already answered many of these questions, feel free to change your answer if you want to. I'll make a note. Okay, 1.3.3, create a development tool such as or similar to a planned unit development that will enable administrative approval of a wide variety of housing types, styles, and options.
2.
1.
2.
1.
Perfect. Okay. I have a secret copy. I just turned the page. So, look like anybody else.
So Charlie, just a quick question.
Yep.
So, as you mentioned, we don't know what, other than our work session last meeting, we really don't know, what's going to prioritize this. So I guess is what comes in application wise, really gonna, if there's something that we didn't think was quite as much of a priority going to get bumped up, because let's just take those high density areas. They don't seem like that'd be something that's going to happen anytime real soon, but it could, and it might need, some quicker action.
That's exactly the subject that I mentioned. I might apply weight to some of them higher than others.
Okay.
Because we do have an application for one of those mixed use commercial areas in already. So
Good.
you'll be
Okay.
seeing that pretty soon. Perfect. Okay. Land use action item 1.3.4. In tandem with land use and action item 4.1.3, establish a program to which residential density can be increased if the developer purchases an agricultural conservation easement in areas shown on the future land use map. Establish the densities that will be authorized when creating the program. It's kind of like a TDR program, conservation program.
2.
Let's just make sure we're on 1.3.3, correct?
Or
0.4. Okay. Sorry.
1.3.4.
2.
I see 3.3 was the last question. Yep. So we're on 3.4 right now.
2.
2.
In sync. Great. Okay, 1.4.1. Amend the subdivision ordinance to create a basic smart growth implementation policy prior to making significant changes to the zoning map.
1.
1.
1.
1.
Awesome. Okay, land use action item 1.4.2, a rezone request that will yield twice as many residential housing units than the current zone allows, including mixed use and vehicle-oriented commercial, should only be considered with a concept plan that demonstrates smart growth principles.
2.
1.
1.
Okay, 1.4.3, a rezone that is adopted contingent on the successful execution of the concept plan should revert to the zone prior. Revert the zone to the prior zone, if the development does not come to fruition within a specified period of time.
2.
2.
I think that's a big deal. 1.
3.
Sheesh. You averaged just right
Yeah,
out.
you balance. That's a good balance. 1.4.4, implement street infrastructure that is designed to a human scale instead of designed to necessitate automobile use.
3.
4. 2.
4.
Yep. Yep. And in fact, when we did the Ogden Valley General Plan, we did do some weighting and ranking like this, but I also created a flow chart where we knew X had to happen before Y, even though Y is very important, X should go first, even though it may not be as high of a priority, it will lead to a better Y outcome. And so that's one of the reasons why I'll put some weights to some. Yep. That's right. For example, I'll be bringing to you guys an ordinance that addresses a number of smart growth principles, how we implement them. It's not going to be like we read a couple of action items ago. It's not going to be just the smart growth principle that is the end smart growth principle, but it's going to be something that gets us at least part of the way there. Easy, low-hanging fruit that we can get done. Most of it's actually already written, just applicable in a different context. So those are the kind of things we take one step forward, and then we take care of the rest with the development agreement while we're working on the much harder.
So I'm gonna,
On this last item.
for the road infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that I kind of, and so I want to make sure that I'm thinking about this the right way, given what's been talked about. So on that one in particular, you know, we're talking about infrastructure in these higher density areas.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have one of those higher density areas that, you know, potentially might be coming to us soon, and granted, the fact that we have, you know, stuff in place for roads already, and I don't want to get stuck on this too long, so sorry. But at the same time, does that make it a priority to kind of have that designed throughout those areas that we're going to be, you know, looking at this higher density?
Yes. Yeah, so this one, we kind of just cast a nebulous net on pedestrian oriented streets. When you get to the transportation section, we actually specify in these village areas where
Okay.
you really need a focus. And so you may have a lower priority, a higher number on one of these, for example, whereas in the streets, you may say number one, because this is important here, but maybe the general concept is as important everywhere.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, 1.4.5, next one down. Outdoor watering needs should be minimized. Require pressurized secondary systems separate from culinary and firefighting systems. Require low flow and drip irrigation systems, and allow no more than 5,000 square feet or 25%, whichever is greater, of a residential lot to be turquoise. Okay. Let's start with Tammy.
2.
5.
3.
3.
I know, but
Yeah. See, quit doing that to me. Because it is a big deal. You know, I mean, yeah.
there's ways to go.
Yeah.
Decide when to be.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item down, to get smaller smaller lot size, we have exemplary smart growth principles, including but not limited to variety of housing options, use of lot averaging, strong trail network, strong street connectivity, large and meaningful open space with improved parks, homes that have higher efficiencies, homes that have solar panels, provisions that create attractive communities for the long term, and provide a distinctive sense of place and use of transferable development rights for agricultural lands identified for protection. Let's mix things up and start with Cammie, excuse me.
I'm gonna go with a 1.
1.
1.
I put a 1 on that one as well, so great. Okay, repeal, next one down, 1.4.7, repeal the use of cluster subdivision code from the Western Weaver planning area, adopt a new park amenitized subdivision tool. This is the non-cluster cluster subdivision. Subdivision tool applicable to areas designed for medium lot sizes that require meaningful park space and park improvements. Such an ordinance may consider the following, and we have a list of things in there, including providing 50% open space, donation, meaning donated to the park. You can reduce the remaining lot sizes to 50% of what the zone would otherwise allow. No more than 50% of the lots can be reduced to a size that equals 25% or less of the zone minimum. Only allow residential lot or unit bonuses for preservation of at least 20 acres. Or one if we're talking about non-cluster cluster. And require the open space to be developed as a public park first. If it's not treated one as a public park, then it can be agricultural or native. Yeah. So
You didn't get my first page.
yeah, I missed Cammie's first page. So
Sarah.
I put your initials at the top. Should have explained that better. I apologize. Thank you, Cammie. Okay. Should we start with Cammie?
2.
We're on, I'm sorry, 1.4.7. Okay, 3.
It's fun to hear where y'all are on these. Okay.
I'm just picking random numbers.
Sometimes shooting from the hip is the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You got your app out, random number generator, 1 to 5. Roll of a dice. Okay. 1.4.8. To encourage a variety of housing options, lot averaging requirements should be amended to allow lots that are no less than 50% of the minimum lot area and width allowed in the development, provided the total number of lots equal the same average density otherwise.
4.
3. Any need for a break? Any need or desire? That's okay.
It's funny, I have to stand up every once in a while. So stand.
It's okay. Just should clap from the stand. It just makes me feel better.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Land use action item 1.4.9, reduce the county's flag lot standards to be no less than twice the area otherwise required for the lot in the development. So this area should exclude the flag stem of the lot. A flag lot should not be counted toward lot averaging calculation. Cammie?
3.
3.
5. 5. It's not a.
1.5.1, as provided in the future land use map, provide land use buffers between dissimilar uses. Commercial areas should be buffered from single-family residential areas with mixed-use residential. Heavier commercial and manufacturing uses should be buffered from residential areas with uses that gradually increase in intensity. Cammie?
1.
2.
2.
Let's see. Now, here's my caveat. Everything under land use is a 1.
That's the problem.
And so, it's like, so I'm struggling with this, trying to, prioritize because there's a lot to do. But at the same time, it's all.
Yeah. If we did a true rating and ranking system, I would have you apply multiple metrics to them. One of the metrics would be in order of priority in time versus in order of priority importance to the community versus importance to the commissioners, for example. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Okay. 2.1.1. Except for compelling public interest, otherwise do not undermine the creation of walkable villages by allocating commercial zoning outside the walkable village areas ahead of market.
2.
2.1.2, after applying an initial commercial zone to an identified village area, maintain a slight scarcity of commercial acreage. The scarcity will help motivate incoming commercial services to be located in the commercial villages. In turn, the congregation of commercial services in village areas will result in a shared economic benefit for all of the village's businesses.
Two.
Two.
Well, we don't know if we're play, what if we get a better spot? That's why I put it in three, so I'm like.
What
But,
comes in?
but once we've got something anchored, let's just anchor. it
Then
like
it's
that,
important.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Home Depot comes in, we'll anchor it.
I agree.
I put a three.
One,
There's no right or wrong answer.
man, I feel better.
You're gonna pass, Wayne.
No right or wrong, just better.
We're
Some
just
better than
auditing
others.
this class.
May not abstain.
Okay, 2.2.1. Enable the creation of a mixed-use commercial regulatory tool in commercial areas generally depicted on the map. Consider using form-based code to help shape the general appearance of buildings and provide appropriate street design requirements. Explore the form and the function of the area during small area planning specified in community character action item 2.1.
Three.
Two.
One.
Two.
Spread.
Well, it just depends on how you're looking at it.
Yep.
You know, it's,
So
yeah.
Oh, it's hard.
it's true. What should come first? So this is kind of two-parter, right? The second part is explore doing this with certain community character action item, the small area plan. Well, what happens if we just explore a village area without looking at the greater small area? That's still possible, and I think we're going to be compelled by an application to do that here pretty quickly.
Well, and I think that's how it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
In the Ogden Valley, when we did form-based, when we started creating form-based villages, we actually used the form-based village as our stepping stone for small area. So we did a little bit of both together. We have a little bit more detail in our small area planning section here than they did. And so we may revisit regularly what small area planning actually is, even though we put together a form base for a particular village area already.
so now turning the tables on you on that one. How did you rate that one?
One. Top of the list. Okay, action item 2.2.2, ensure the residential development does not overwhelm or undermine future street commercial opportunities. Consider building setback for residential buildings that preserve street frontage for future street level commercial buildings and uses. That's specifically in the commercial areas, not in the mixed use residential areas. Cammy?
Three.
Three. Two.
I squared that up. Okay.
Yeah.
2.2.3, ensure development regulations provide for pedestrian priority in these areas by streets in a manner that signals to drivers that pedestrians are present and have priority use of the street. Ensure site plans provide efficient and direct pedestrian access to businesses and buildings from the street right of way. What that last sentence means, if you've been to this Walmart over here on Wall, for example, they've got a sidewalk from Wall Avenue to the front door. Now, a lot of people use that, but if that was a walkable village, you'd probably find more people using those accesses, and it's separated. So it's very clearly marked separate from where the cars are and where the cars cross it. And so it's prioritizing getting the pedestrians to the front of the building without having to use a vehicle, even though people rarely go to Walmart on feet because shopping carts are so big.
Well, and the expressway's right there.
That's right.
And what's really fun about that one is the two-way expressway on the very tail end of it there.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Well,
Not confusing at all.
they changed it to that, didn't they? Yeah, it used to be just a one-way. Okay. Start with Cammy.
One.
Two. One.
2.3.1, enable the creation of vehicle-oriented commercial land uses in areas generally depicted on the map. in concert with mixed-use commercial land use action item 2.1. Consider using a form-based code to help shape the general appearance of buildings and provide appropriate street design requirements. Explore the form and function of each area during small area planning. That's character.
3.
2. 3.
Action item 2.3.2, design streets in a manner that signals to drivers that pedestrians may be present. Sorry.
Yeah. Was the last one we did 2.3.1?
Yes.
Oh, I want mine as, that's a 1 for me.
Change it to a 1.
Thank you. I got off 1 somehow.
He pulled a Casey.
What happens when I work ahead? Before it.
I feel like I already read this one.
You did.
You're right. Oh, yep, you're right. As I was editing the plan afterwards, the formatted version, this was added twice. Yes.
Three.
Yes.
232. Yep. And I already deleted off the formatted version 232. Just consolidated.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're on 2.4.1 then?
Yep.
Okay.
Guys with me? Rezone properties depicted in the future land use map as heavy commercial to a commercial zone that supports the heaviest type of commerce in the industry, in the commercial industry as opposed to in the manufacturing industry. Start with Tammy.
2.
3.
I marked that one as a 5. It's where it's heavy commercial, so far out there. I don't really know how long it's going to be before we get there, but however, preserving 8300 West is going to be important for the long term. Okay. 2.4.2, buffer heavy commercial from residential uses by utilizing natural or man-made features to create a hard edge between the two, or by placing a zone between them that can exist in harmony with both, such as an office or tech park, open space, or agriculture.
See, this is where I'm getting off with my thinking again, because like, okay, it's important, but where's the priority right now, right? That's where I'm thinking of importance instead of priority.
If it helps at all, the future land use map shows those buffers. And so when somebody comes in to ask for a rezone, a lot of this we say, well, this is really important, but it's going to be driven by development requests. And so, I mean, we can maybe even say we've already checked this box as long as we're being observant of the things.
We've checked it, it's a 5, right?
Up to you on that. Even some of these, even though they may already be accomplished, may still be a high priority for us to and watch. Or, okay, Tammy.
2.
2.
5.
Okay, 3.1.1. Enable the creation of an industrial mega site west of 8300 West. Ensure adequacy of land use separations between industrial and manufacturing uses and residential and mixed-use commercial areas. Separate heavy manufacturing and other types of manufacturing and industrial uses. Create commercial design standards for areas other than heavy manufacturing that will generate an attractive business area. So put all together, in the M2 zone, we should have some design standards that it makes an attractive manufacturing area. Same with the M1 zone. M3, make sure it's separate from those other two, and let the industry be the industry. Create ugly buildings if you want to, the emphasis isn't on attractiveness of it, it's more on function, like creating rock. Can.
2.
2.
2.
3.1.2, provide adequate locations for an office or tech park. Because of the quiet nature of an office or tech park, this use can buffer heavier commercial or industrial uses from residential or mixed use village areas. Seconds.
3.
2.
3.
So,
These right here are the ones that we've kind of already been through and we didn't finish before. And I don't know if that led to any loss, in what could have happened, in loss of potential, I'm going to say. So it's like, if you wait for it to come up again, and then we're under the gun to get it done then. Okay.
So we have an application for a office tech / manufacturing park already. We've got a lot moving, and that application is probably going to run pretty quickly. They've done most of my work for me. And so we'll probably be scheduling a public hearing for that in December. I've got them on for next week's work session, or the end of the meeting if there's time for it. I've got them on for a work session to show you guys what they're doing. That's over on 59 West District. Okay. 4.1.1, an area's plan for agriculture, the county should strive to encourage a lot or parcel to be no less than 2 acres.
is that what we've got up there?
If it's A3, it does show as 2 acres. Yeah. Now, yeah. Oh, you're right. Where the green area is.
Right.
Yes. And between 4,700 and the river, it's also shown as. Sorry, north of 12th Street. Make sure that's correct. Okay, Cammy.
3.
5.
3.
2.
4.1.2, larger lots or parcels should be encouraged by creating a transferable or purchasable development right overlay ordinance or similar program and applying it to land that is prime for agricultural crop production as opportunities arise. Let's do this in reverse order. Next one. Wayne, what do you think? Do you want me to start with Cammy?
No, I'm debating this.
You okay?
I'm struggling about 5 years and 20 years.
Mm.
And that's my problem with this. I'm gonna give it a 3.
Okay.
3.
2.
3.
Okay, in tandem with land use action item 1.3.3, establish a program in which residential density can be increased if the developer purchases an agricultural conservation easement in areas shown on the future land use map as planned for agriculture. Establish the densities that will be authorized when creating the program and related ordinance. Let's start with Wayne.
I'm gonna go 2 on that.
3.
3.
3.
When I'm still trying to keep it in the same order, so I'm right in the opposite direction. It feels weird.
I haven't went.
It's reverse. It's going to mess you up.
Okay, 4.1.1. Where the agricultural protection area is depicted on the future land use map, the county should consider creating incentives to landowners for keeping the land in agricultural production and for keeping it contiguous to other agriculturally protected lands. Work with landowners to convert their agricultural protection areas to agricultural conservation areas. Encourage the creation of a local nonprofit land trust or work with another existing land trust to secure conservation easements on these parcels. When possible and practical, discourage residential development that interrupts the contiguity or potential contiguity of agricultural operations. Sorry.
5.
Wayne, 5.
A 3. That's going to present itself, but
Yep.
I'll give it a 3.
4.
Little anecdote, when Rick does employee evaluations, he makes sure he emphasizes it's 1 out of 5 and 3 means that you're a stellar employee. I really think he says that to just make us feel good about getting a C.
Okay, well, it's 1 or 5.
Okay, encourage new agricultural pursuits to be located in areas planned for agriculture.
5.
Oh, now I forgot. I say, I'm gonna say 1.
Well,
It's great to encourage that.
Nope, I'm putting 1. Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's-
no take backs.
4.
And the only reason I said that is because it's too expensive.
That's right.
It's not, it's, yeah, exactly. It's not that that's not where my heart is. It's just that it's too expensive.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm a feature.
4.2.2, during small area planning as provided in community character item 2.1.1, identify with farm operators the lands that should be preserved for agricultural uses. I worded that word, excuse me. In concert with land use principle 5.1, pursue a transfer or purchase of development right program to permanently remove the density from the farmland and transfer it into village areas or other more appropriate areas. 2.
4.
3.
3.
Okay, 4.3.1, encourage and support the preservation of light agricultural uses in residential areas, provided that agricultural uses are operated and maintained in a manner that is keeping with the quiet, peace, and enjoyment of the area. This may include hobby farming and community gardens, but should not include agricultural uses that use chemical sprays, require night operations, or use equipment larger than is typical for a residential street lane. Take your time.
How do you do this without chemicals?
Even as a hobby farm.
Even as a hobby farmer.
Well, maybe we should asterisk that because the chemical spray was intended to only apply to the large chemical application, whether it be airplanes or, a large implement pulling, sprayers. So if you're out there with a small tractor or whatever, that wasn't necessarily intended to apply for that.
Depends on where the point's from.
Yeah.
This is a this is a very serious problem, actually. I think it's gonna get worse where you've got open ditches through subdivisions. I don't know. I just don't like this whole thing. Now, that's me to rewrite. I don't even really, because the thing of it is that today's environment, when we're not we're, I'll say hobby farm, we use a tremendous amount of things. So I don't know. I guess to me, it's not a problem.
There's another component or another section that talks about open spaces within residential areas being no greater than 10 acres unless it's. Does that help?
I'm not sure.
Sounds like a 5.
Well, just to have us moving on. Put a 4 in there.
4. Okay.
I agree that maybe we should asterisk the chemical part.
Well, the thing of it is we're gonna use it. That's the day of the sign, it's over.
Right.
I think that I don't know any other way to get rid of it once we go back.
Well, the problem with it that I see is the hobby farms are only hobby farms as long as there's a hobby farmer. And then they become a weed patch. And then how do you deal with that? So anyway, did you give your rating on that one?
I heard 4.
4? Okay, I 4.
continue to farm. That is your right.
Right.
I would encourage it somewhere else,
agree.
because yeah, I
I
don't,
agree.
I don't see encouraging it, I tolerating it
Mhm,
in residential areas,
mhm.
protect their right.
Maybe I should change it to tolerate.
And I think that kind of happens with your next too, and it works for the most part, but, yeah, once you're high residential, like.
It's all fun and games till the first loss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, and we're in that area again between now and 20 years. I mean, 20 years, this wouldn't even be on.
I think you're right.
4.
Four?
Apologize, I have to.
No worries.
Right in the middle of all this fun.
Sorry.
Oh,
Four.
easy.
Well, that's a 5.
Put whatever Wayne put as mine.
See you, Casey.
We've got a form for proxy voting you have to sign and get notarized and
Stop and getting us a Big Mac.
For, I'm good with anything. I'll eat just about anything.
Meeting.
that sounds great. Do we have a need for a break or a pause?
So far,
Let's go. We'll carry on for a little bit.
Carry on our wayward souls. Okay, 5.1.1, encourage the grassroots creation of a local land trust to purchase the development rights from landowners' property and place a permanent and perpetual no build easement on it. Wait. 4.
5. Those are going to take care of themselves.
4.
Okay. 5.1.2, create a transferable development rights program in which bonus densities are offered to a developer for purchasing development rights from a large landowner. Create a means of prioritizing lands most critical to protect. 4.
I'll give that one a 3.
3.
It's funny because, I mean, it seems like we've asked that question maybe 2 or 3 other times, and when you see it in the plan, it relates to a particular principle or particular goal a little bit differently than maybe the other way we read it. Taking it out of context just makes it seem redundant. Okay, 5.1.3, continue to monitor the public support for the creation of a special assessment tax to compensate farmers for not developing. 5. Okay.
5.
Read my lips, no new taxes.
Yeah. Right up until there was new taxes.
I swear, I didn't know it was gonna require this much to run a country.
Yeah. Go figure.
5.4.1, support the use of floodplain areas as natural parks. Nature parks should remain predominantly native, but walkways, benches, interpretive signage, and other improvements that provide a public use benefit should be considered.
3.
2.
Ask you guys a quick question. When you're thinking about the Emerald Necklace, the river corridor, is that mostly native? Is it mostly groomed? What would you guys?
Well, because of the way that it is, it should be some of both, because there are some areas of it that are groomed a little bit more than others. Some that are, more natural, but I think it should be some of both.
Any other
That's how I
ideas?
see it.
Only reason I'm asking that is because as we review the one right next to the river, 5900 West in a few weeks from now, just curious how we want to see that. I've taken kind of the same approach. They've got a larger area that's going to be kind of detention or retention. I figured throw some grass or whatever in there, maintain it.
Right.
The vast majority of their area, so keep it as natural as you can.
And that'll be a public area, right?
Public area next to it. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a picnic area or something. Is that what you're, sort of just tables, maybe some trees that actually provide shade that aren't falling in the river.
That's right. We're also I haven't told them this yet, but we're gonna ask them to donate that parcel or that land to the park district out to the Marlin Park District. And they're working on actually changing the boundaries to go along the river.
A lot of that is really cool space between levee and water.
And
I agree. I think the both of you are pretty well.
Do- yeah, depending on where you're at on that river, though, it has interesting topography and geography all the way along it. Even when you get down there before it dumps into the bay, it's ugly. I mean, in relationship to green, but it's got its own, it's got its own character. So anyway.
Are they gonna be netted areas? I mean, just because the mosquitoes have been so bad this year. Oh. Okay, I'm just joking,
It's
but
actually a really good question.
it's been a lot of blood donation this year, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right up until about a week ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
In fact, we had some cattle down in the lower pasture that get to the river. And they came all the way up to 5100 West and they tore a gate down to get there because of the mosquitoes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this has just been in the last 3 or 4 weeks since since it's been such an extended, long warm spell.
Yeah, wow. Instead of mosquito repellent, smother them with sugar or something.
Really not bad unless you kill animals.
Yeah.
Somebody's
You get
lived
pretty
there
upset
all.
at that point.
But when they get to the sides, when all you kill is one.
Right.
We call those wood skiers.
Yeah.
Need a mosquito stamp.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was off track.
No, it's great. Just imagining just giving everybody one of those electrified fly swatters whenever they go play. Okay, 5.4.2, support the creation of a wetlands preservation area in one or more of the parks to allow for wetland mitigation under Army Corps of Engineering requirements.
One.
2.
And last one for land use, continue to support the preservation of the lakeshore area as an open space and wildlife habitat.
Two.
That's always gonna be that.
Well, after
I just feel
having,
like we don't participate in it, so if we do
that's,
nothing, then it's.
There's no right or wrong.
it is pretty much all DNR out side of the lake, but again, for me, that whole section deserves one. We've weighted them, but
Yeah, as I'm flipping back to the very first page, I should have put the header up on all the pages, but let's see. I've got the other columns. I've got the department or agency likely to initiate. I've got what metric will be used to measure. I've got just the various notes that we'll put in there, whether or not there's a fiscal appropriation needed, and then the last column is percent complete. And so I think the metric, the measurable is going to be the challenge for us to kind of figure out. Maybe, preserving the lakeshore is one of our highest priorities, but like Sarah said, it's not super actionable by us.
Right.
Right.
no,
And so-
absolutely.
Maybe our scale or a metric would be, sending an email to DWR every once in a while, or engaging in the conservation effort. They've got special groups and all that. We're working on these things.
On the wetland preservation to mitigate to the Corps' requirements in a park area, though, I think that could be something that might end up being, we might have someone come in with a development that says, okay, well, we'll take this whole area here and we'll use this as our mitigation to do something here.
Absolutely.
And so I would rather have the ability to have that potential in our area rather than in Box Elder County.
Right.
Out in the middle of nowhere, where no one goes.
Yeah.
But the mosquitoes.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, there are at least two developments, large developments that I'm aware of kind of grumbling a little bit, or rumbling, I should say, not grumbling, rumbling a little bit. Who both will do a little bit of wetland mitigation. And so far, one of them has actually suggested where that should be. So, and then the Army Corps will tell us what
No.
ratio should be.
No.
Well, yeah,
No.
whether yes or no. and-
10-1,
Yeah. Yeah,
2-1,
that's
25-1.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in Box Elder County right now, I think it's 5-1. So 5 acres preserved.
But it depends on the quality of the wetland.
That's right, and where it's specifically located.
Exactly. It's a hard negotiation to get down to 1-1, but I did it.
Really? Okay,
That's a
well,
long story. We
you're-
won't go there now.
You're gonna be on that committee then. Okay, housing, we ready for housing? Okay. Encourage the development of low to moderate income multiplexes, townhomes, and other missing middle housing types within or near established cities, towns, and walkable village areas in order to balance the housing opportunities with the protection of agricultural lands and open spaces. Support the Weber Housing Authority's role in developing mixed-use housing projects. Let's start on the other side.
One.
One. 1.1.2, incorporate residential residential dwelling units within walkable village areas to encourage mixed-use development with retail commercial spaces at street level and residential units on the upper floors. This style of development lends itself to affordable housing prices and also locates moderate income households within walkable distances to neighborhood amenities within the village commercial areas, minimizing household transportation costs. Yeah.
3.
Create an adaptive reuse policy to allow abandoned or underutilized non-residential buildings within or near established cities, towns, and village areas to be converted into mixed-use spaces with ground floor commercial spaces and upper floor residential housing.
3.
3.
Work with Weber County, Weber Housing Authority, and other Weber County communities to create a community land trust to provide below market homeownership opportunities for moderate income buyers. The land is owned by the trust, but the homes or townhomes are owned by the individuals. This enables the community to facilitate a mix of home ownership opportunities within or near established cities, towns, village areas while maintaining important greenfield areas. Okay. All right, Tammy,
Okay, wait, I gotta look at that one more time here.
no worries.
So Charlie, how does that work? Does that mean that the unit or the building itself gets sold, but the land is always held in the trust?
Yeah, it's like condominiumizing it, so somebody can own the inside wall paint or whatever.
Okay.
And then the housing authority, for example, would own the common areas and the rest of it,
Oh,
and
okay.
they would have essentially a covenant that they operate, maintain, verify income, all that.
What do I think? I'm gonna change mine to a 3.
3.
Adopt an inclusionary zoning ordinance that requires 10% of residential unit equivalents in one project. Excuse me. Yep, 10% in one project to be affordable to 50% AMI or lower, and 10% to be affordable to 80% AMI or lower. The ordinance can apply to certain project sizes for developers to comply. Incentives or bonuses are needed. This strategy is most popular in areas where more intense development ability, which makes it compatible with the community's desire to provide more options in neighborhood nodes, and avoiding too small to farm, too large to mow sprawl in current greenfield. I could tell the ones that I didn't specifically write because I have a harder time reading. And
2.
3.
All right, the housing tool. Sorry, the Housing Location Explorer maintained by the Wasatch Front Regional Council can be used to identify potential locations for housing options based on access to factors such as transportation, education, jobs, and healthcare. And just some context on that, Wasatch Front Regional Council has created a GIS mapping-based tool where you can go in there, you can select priorities, like where you want to locate housing, maybe even where you want to locate jobs. Go in there and select what's sort of your broader housing, healthcare, jobs, education. So you go in there, you mark what priority, and you kind of hit enter, and it comes out of an area. You can see on the map. Here are your priority areas for your higher intensity moderate income housing options. Well, sort of. So it's hard to utilize that specifically for the Western Weaver area because it's all single family residential at 95,000 a year AMI. Yeah, well, when we start getting those village nodes, it'll be a lot easier to do this. Okay, yes. Okay.
Okay, then we're gonna go with 4.
But the use of the tool is important through the process though, right? I mean, are we saying that
Well,
or not?
right now, the tool isn't manipulable where we can enter our own data. It's only pulling from existing data.
Oh, okay.
But we did talk with WF. They created it specifically for the Weaver County housing project. That project was looking at the county as a whole. And as phase 1, phase 2 was helping the county write their moderate income housing plan for the unincorporated areas.
Right.
So right now it's more applicable to those areas, but I did tell them, to the more urbanized areas, but I did tell them in order for us to be able to use this, we've got to be able to manipulate the inputs so we can see something more informative as we grow.
4.
Working with the Weaver Center of Excellence, they asked for the ability to apply even more inputs, like where is daycare being provided? Where are the homeless shelters? Where, are certain other elements of the community that could be even more informative for the work that they do. So there's a few different ways that the tool can be manipulated based on what question you're trying to ask. Okay, 2.1.1, revise cluster and PRUD ordinances to require a variety of housing types in development. Sorry. I think it's been reworded in the final adopted version, but I'll check on that because. Okay, so we revise cluster and PRUD ordinances to require a variety of housing types in development projects larger than 10 acres. Monitor this number and price variability in development projects to determine whether it is either overly burdensome on the development community or impractical in achieving the desired outcome of a mix of available housing types and price ranges, and adjust the unit threshold as necessary based on the location of the development in relation to the future land use map.
2.
2.1.1.
2.
2.1.2, create a workforce/employer assisted housing program in the areas near large employment centers to provide a mix of affordable housing opportunities near people's jobs.
2,
4. Again, which is it, the chicken or the egg?
Right. I agree with you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think a lot of it is potentially resolvable when we look at our future land use map. Because we did try and put mixed use residential, higher density residential around those village nodes. So hopefully that induces a live, work, play environment. But when we look at the manufacturing zone out west or the business / manufacturing entity that's going to be coming in on 5900, do we have actual affordable housing options for them? Our industrial mega site has been primarily targeted for blue collar jobs, for manufacturing jobs. Now, those aren't all low paying jobs, but some of them will be. And so we need to make sure we do provide reasonable and affordable housing and transportation options. Best thing for a lot of people would be not to have to drive 10 miles to get to that destination. It would be to be a little closer to where they live and work. That's absolutely right. Okay. 2.1.3, adopt age in place design principles. Sorry, I might need to break myself. Okay, adopt age in place design principle requirements for mixed housing types. That basically means if you're doing an age in place, it's you don't have stairs in your house, or your main level has your master, your laundry, your cooking facilities and bathroom facilities, so that you don't have to move out of your house as you get to it.
Agree.
Agree. I wonder why.
I'm the closest. I'm the closest. Where's the stone?
Okay. Support rural living in the agriculture and large size residential lot designations in the future, on the future land use. Amy?
3,
3.
Provide ordinances that ease regulations for accessory dwelling units.
3,
2.
Interesting to hear you guys' comments. We've eased them, but we could probably ease them even further. So good to hear. Okay, support the Weber Housing Authority in reestablishing an emergency home repair program to assist in housing maintenance for moderate to low income homes. Tammy?
5,
Sarah?
3.
4,
3.1.2, develop and adopt design standards for commercial centers, multi-family housing, and mixed-use communities. Tammy?
3,
3.
3,
4.1.1, update and or put in place the necessary tools enabling the community to track the, number 1, mix of existing housing stock. Number 2, condition of existing housing stock. Number 3, delivery of existing housing education made available to the public. Number 4, the availability and local resources and enabling single and multifamily rehabilitation for new construction, which facilitates access and affordability for special needs populations. And 5, the uses of land and how they change over time. So this is primarily a tracking mechanism. Cam?
4,
4.
Okay, 4.1.2, survey how other communities track their housing stock in order to understand efficient and effective ways to track housing stock and conditions in unincorporated Weaver County.
On that one, the county has to report to the state on something like that, right?
So what we would do in this one is we would look to what other communities are doing
Right.
and how are they counting there. So the state says do these kinds of things, one of which may include keeping track of what you have and making sure that it stays that way. How are the other communities doing? That's what this specifically is called.
But it's a mandatory item,
Not necessarily.
not necessarily.
It's on the list. Yeah, right. So that it's a list of how many 20 different items on the 24 different items. That's right. We have to have at least 10 to get priority funding status, minimum of 2. And so only 50% of what's listed actually needs to be implemented. This may or may not be one of the ones that we want to use. I mean, we did choose it, so we can put whatever priority rating we want on it though. It's actually the rating and ranking that you guys are giving us right now is going to help Bill put in a little bit more context in the implementation timeframe that you just talked about. So it'll give him some good feedback. But my thought was accurate. Okay, Ken?
4.
5.
4.1.3, conduct a housing barriers analysis as part of the 2-year update of the moderate income housing plan. 2-year, that's interesting. I did make some changes to these. I am curious. I may have just pulled them from the wrong version. It's 1 year now. Okay. Conduct a housing barriers analysis as part of the 1-year update of the moderate income housing plan. Coordinate this effort with the Weaver Housing Authority.
4.
4.
This one's kind of a little more along the lines of mandatory. And so I'll probably rate it a little higher as a 1 or 2, just to make sure that as we get things back to the state, we actually have the tools that we need to make it happen. So housing barriers analysis, it's a little more challenging. There's a lot more into it. What are the barriers to getting? Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that was the last one. The one we just rated.
I guess I'm confused. So it's like we have it for.
I mean, you're right. It's a mistake. That line, the next line down, is supposed to be part of 4.1.3, right above it. When I copied and pasted, it must have just crossed over 2 cells.
Okay.
So, oh, okay. So then that is something that is mandatory. That's the one you have to report.
Yeah, well, you don't have to use the tool, but you do have to provide a housing barriers analysis. The tool just makes it easier.
Okay, that's
Well, then, so to prioritize that, it should probably be a little bit higher priority, but if you're already weighing it, then,
Yeah, so I'm not going to do that to all of them, but some of them where I know we have to have something done at least annually, I'll score a little higher. And even still, if we score them low, we still have to do it. So it's not going to matter overall. I think commissioners, do you mind if we take a little break?
No.
I've got to get a little bit of water.
that's good. Let's do it. So are we going to try and get through the whole thing? Because we're not quite halfway, I don't think.
Let's ask you guys that question. How do you feel?
So, well, where are you at? I mean,
I'm always good to shorten it.
Yeah,
Right?
I did my homework,
I feel like I'm back home.
but it's actually nice to,
Read the assignment, I did my doc, going with the professor. Going over the whole thing again.
It's kind of nice to go over it with you though, because there's things that like
Yeah,
maybe
we-
it didn't sink in, or I was like, okay,
A
I'm
little bit
done.
of context difference.
Right.
Here's the story of my.
Yeah, and quit poking fun at the slow kids.
I was gonna say, my college experience was completely different. I feel like you did the reading and then you went into class
Well-
and the teacher said, did you do the reading? If you did, class dismissed.
We-
Or didn't talk anything about the reading.
I sat down and read the plan, a couple times without any problem. But this, when I started down to do it, when I tried to do it and just get some I couldn't come up with the context to it. So that's why this is helpful for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think on the transportation side of the thing, I'm gonna grab my. That's the thing, that context is gonna be even more important because
okay,
we're rating and ranking the importance of specific highway corridors.
right.
That's a little hard unless you know which highway corridor.
One time. Transportation.
So let's maybe at least get that next section, see where we're at after that. If you need to sit down for a second, Charlie, go ahead, take 5.
I don't need to sit, it's just the water. I'll grab my laptop and get set up.
In 2 weeks. Rick, yeah, do we got an idea of what the next meeting's gonna be on the 15th? Is it?
The 15th or 14th, whatever date that is. Charlie and I are gonna be pushing it to get back, so it may be more current planning items. Because we're going to this smart water growth workshop for the state with the governor on that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. So
I hadn't, but that doesn't mean I don't, maybe I'll be in, but yeah. That's okay.
They asked for was the creation of essentially a stakeholder committee.
Oh.
So I've got the chair and vice chair of both planning commissions invited to it. And then we've got the water companies also invited to that. So Warren, West Warren, and Taylor, West Weaver, and just one thing, Wolf Creek Water and Sewer. We're not going to turn them away. We just wanted to keep things kind of more to a community level in the Ogden Valley. We've got 80 something private water companies. And so it gets a little more constrained. And really, this is about making sure that the county's approach to water is oriented around conservation. In the end, it may turn into ordinances that require water companies to do certain things. I don't know that we can go quite to that level because just based on commissioners saying we're not quite in the water business, it's their business. But if we can educate, that'll help. Most of this is going to be oriented around how to make sure that we get our water conservation element in our general plans right. And we have a good portion of that done, if not all of it. We're just verifying that we did it correctly because nobody else was doing it, not even the state. And what I mean by that is the state has their water conservation plans, but they have very specific requirements now in state code on what ours should say, one of which is a tabulation of water use by land use type. And they didn't define what a land use type is. It's like, well, is that every single one of our zones or is some of our zones? That's right. For example, the state, one of their land uses is municipal and industrial. Like, well, that's broad. Are they expecting us to further stratify that? And if they are, how do we go about it? So one of the things that I did in our plan is I had Brandon provide me just data for Taylor West Weaver and just made an assumption that the water use from Keogh West Weaver is generally applicable across the board. Housing unit is expected to use about 250 gallons a day, I believe is what it was. So dividing that by 3 point something gives you 80 something gallons a day per person, because they do want to evaluate the amount of water per capita.
That was 65. the other day at the conference, wasn't it 65 per person per day? I
They
think
showed,
said?
a lot less than what we're using.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, so our numbers come in.
I listened, Bill.
Actually, I saw their numbers too.
Yes.
It's,
Right.
it is one of the challenges, and it's one of the reasons why this training session is coming up, because they need to standardize how this works.
Mhm.
Per capita per day measurements, if you're thinking about industrial uses, it's a lot easier for me to say there are about 3 people who live in a house, therefore, what's the water use per residence? We can average that, and then averaging out how many people in the house, you get per capita per day pretty easily.
Right.
You have a huge water user out west, and you've got 2 people working there, for example. Well, are you counting it by the employee? If you're doing per capita per day, technically you're supposed to say, all right, 10 million gallons a day being used by that water company divided by 8,000 residents, that's your per capita per day. And that's where things get really going on.
Right.
Because if you're Clearfield, for example, where you've got a very small amount of residences and a lot of industrial, your per capita per day is going to be huge.
Yeah.
And how do you compare communities across the board?
Well, and you've got, the Warren district or Taylor West Weaver, and you've got a couple of large dairies.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
Oh. Mm-mm.
And the agricultural side of things, that's one of the reasons why in our plan, I've got the per capita per day, and I've got another table on just generalized, this is what we see being used with agriculture. I used agriculture, I pulled the agricultural out separately.
Good.
To give a different metric to it.
I was hoping that you'd gotten the numbers that way, because it's got to be done that way. But then the thing that's kind of bad about that is you do have some of the users that use the culinary for outdoor use too. But you can only get so close.
Yeah.
So,
I was actually surprised to see Taylor West Weaver had so many different user categories. They have institutional, they have churches and schools and stuff like that. They've got obviously residential, and they had agriculture or outdoor use as well.
you're on a tight ship over there.
It's good to see. Yeah, and then on the agricultural side, I just compared the duty, the water duty, and compared it to the amount of acreage, and said, this is generally speaking what we get. Now, people who are dry farming and not using all the water or don't have all the water they need, we want to overestimate, but just try to measure.
Yeah, but for personal use, that won't be part of the equation. For culinary,
Oh,
for
right,
culinary
right.
use, because that
Yep.
doesn't have anything to do with,
That's
and
exactly
it
right.
shouldn't have anything to do with outdoor, except for maybe a yard.
Yep. And that's exactly why I separated agriculture
Yeah.
as well. So, okay. I took a sip and immediately started sweating, so it's working. Okay. Said I was gonna get set up and I didn't get set up, so. I saw Andrew look like you had the plan in front of you. Do any of the rest of you guys have the plan with you? You don't walk around.
When we get to a section.
Okay, let's start with 1.2.1. Locate and design new development with direct, redundant, and multi-model access to major corridors. Let's go the opposite direction. Start going. One.
Two.
1.
Okay. Collaborate with and anticipate the needs of the Utah Department of Transportation. In the event their objectives are at odds with the desired outcomes of this plan, coordinate and communicate the need of the community and press for prioritizing community placemaking. Think about that for just a second. Oh, sorry.
1.
Collaborate with the Utah Department of Transportation to design clean street standards that can be implemented. The planned multi-model villages, west, central. When appropriate, encourage UDOT to take over the east-west street corridors that link I-15 and North Lake Highway, as well as other arterial electric streets that provide essential interconnect.
One,
Two. One.
gotta get the darn thing out first.
Right. That's exactly right.
We can't afford it.
Can't afford any more of them, but we do need to get that one.
During reconstruction of Highway 89, ensure that UDOT prioritizes the connection of Cumbie Drive to Highway 89 and maintains the neighborhood's egress for Cumbie Drive traffic that is headed both northbound and southbound on Highway 89. Start with one.
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 Thanks. Only one or two things I really need to. We don't have that. We can wait it off.
In lieu of transportation action item 2.2.1, the one we just read, collaborate with UDOT to consider alternatives that offer the same effect. See maps X through Y possible alternatives, and X through Y have numbers now, so just can't remember what I number is. Starting with Wayne.
One.
Well,
Two.
Minimize or prohibit new single-family driveways from providing direct access onto streets that are designated as arterial or collector streets. Where single-family lots are allowed, encourage or require lots to rear onto the corridor without direct access from the corridor. Consolidate access by means of other residential streets or shared driveways. Amend county ordinances to provide for this.
One, because I can't figure out why people want to build on.
It's a country road right now.
Yeah,
It's just what happens in the future.
yeah, and even on 5100 West subdivision that's kind of in trifecta area there, Weber County, Hooper, West Haven. Have those three homes. And they should have been turned into the subdivision, so that all come out. Anyway, sorry, pet peeve, but
mine's
one.
one because I'm living in production.
Yes, I read that wrong. So yes, one.
I'm still. Okay. We'll keep it at that.
I did interpret that right, Charlie. I don't want to miss.
No, that's, you did interpret that correctly. Yeah, and it's short-sighted, even though a lot of people don't understand how community planning works, how communities evolve. But I watched as 800 East in Orem was expanded and they tore down a bunch of buildings. I watched as 800 North in Orem was expanded and they tore down a bunch of residential buildings. These were all residences that they tore down. They did zigzag to go around the churches. It was interesting to see. But community priorities.
More expensive. I was gonna say, I think it was a cleanup project.
I don't know what,
Maintain them.
yeah, I don't know what promises were made by the city, but there was one specific one on one of the corners that as they were pushed out, and they spray painted just a message outside of the flyer. It's a really interesting way to create a building.
It's built on a.
Right,
Did you guys know that gentleman in the back corner?
that was Lance.
Oh, that was Lance?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, to have him.
Yes, you probably should anyway. But anyway, the beard's gone. I'm just kidding. Oh,
I kind of wondered too. I didn't realize.
I didn't even think for a second about the beard, but you're right. That's fine. I thought maybe you lost a bunch of weight or something. Okay. During small area planning, as provided in community character action item 1.1.1, create a design theme for each corridor that provides for the artistic styling of landscaping, walls, fences, street art, and other points of interest. Require adjacent developers to install the aesthetic improvements at the time they install their developments. Go to Wayne. Take your time.
You know, I'm gonna make this a one, only reason that is, even though we can. Reason one. Part of things. But I think that it's a good way to keep the community.
No, I think part of it. Now, it's hard to say,
That's
you had to
true.
do it, but
That's
you didn't
true.
have to do it
Mhm.
on the grant committee. Put it in the middle.
Sticking with my 4.
Yeah, you're right. I have shared the same concern, and we don't want to go with what we think is the flavor of the month when maybe long-term, as we get small area planning, it's a bit different and made a developer do it a little bit differently. In the past.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think it's really important for this document, for the general plan. When you put this amount of effort into something, it needs to last for a while. So that's why it needs to be opened up and changed when it needs to be opened up and changed. And, it goes back to that same sentiment of don't treat this thing like it's, comes straight from the hand of God. It needs to be kept update so that it doesn't need to be done. And all of this doesn't need to be reinvented every time. Sorry.
Nope. Agreed. Gonna say, it was hand of God adjacent.
Yes, yes, kind of next door.
Okay.
You just held up the pencil, right?
That's right. I just held the pencil, everything else just came and flowed.
There you go.
2.4.1, thanks for blasting. 2.4.1, work with the Utah Department of Transportation to ensure that all limited access freeways provide an off freeway, multi-use paved active transportation path. This pathway should have limited points of vehicle conflict by use of tunnels, bridges, under or over streets. I'm gonna also put it over railroad crossings. In parentheses.
2.
On that subject, we did put in for funding. I don't know how high of a priority it should be if we do get the funding, but we're going to build a pedestrian bridge through the railroad. The idea to start with the connection. I know that the school district is kind of thinking of using the railroad track as their dividing line between all of their schools, elementary, junior high, and high school. But if we beat them to the punch in providing good, efficient pedestrian cross accessibility, maybe they don't have to be. Choose their boundaries. Just pedestrian on 4300. Yeah. There used to be a road crossing. There was, I believe it was a high school student that was the other killed there.
Further up, but that's the one that they closed. The next 3,500 is the one where he got killed. And then but working with the railroad, 43 is the one that they closed.
Oh.
Mhm.
I guess it's a lower priority than 500, but
Well, the thing that's bad now, especially as the population gets big in the ag world, that was a good way to get around 4,700.
Yeah.
Not have to spend as much time on a busy road with big equipment,
yeah, absolutely.
and it's gone. And to go all the way up to 3,500 is too far.
That makes sense.
Um,
Well, then right now, with the planning, the 47, between 4,700 and 4,300, that is the commercial for the 12th Street corridor of 900.
And you'll never get that back.
Right.
And it was tragic that that happened, but at the same time, not sure that I can agree with the railroad crossing being closed.
Yeah.
In lieu of it, especially where they were trying to beat the train. If it was a pure accident, it's pure accident. But when you're doing something stupid,
Yeah, makes sense.
sorry.
Interesting. Didn't know the whole story on that.
Mhm.
That's right. Okay, Wayne. Hang on a second. I don't think I read this one, did I?
Oh, I didn't vote.
No, you did. You did. Sorry. I'm the one mistaken.
Are you waiting for me?
Nope, nope. I haven't read 2.4.2.
Okay. All right.
So starting on that one. As development occurs along minor arterial and collector streets, require developers to install a street separated multi-use paved pathway on at least one side of the street. Modify impact fee analysis and plans to provide funding to connect these developer installed pathway segments to meaningful community connections. If a pathway is or will be installed on only one side of the street, priority should be given to the north and east sides of the street to ensure optimal sun exposure during winter months, unless the context of the street and or other nearby infrastructure merits otherwise. Starting with Wayne.
3.
1, 2.
Great. Okay. 2.4.3, modify street standards to ensure that where a pathway is not or will not be located adjacent to a street, a sidewalk that is at least 5 feet wide is installed.
2.
2.
Provide a paved shoulder along all non-residential streets that contains a marked bike lane. Consider doing the same for higher use major residential streets.
Two.
I'm gonna go with my 4.
Okay.
Bikes and cars, but I don't think bike lanes are tickets. I don't know if it makes any difference, so.
I think it does if it's contiguous and continues. I guess I should say continuous, but where you have them and they stop and they start.
Yeah, you gotta have a big wide enough road for them to really work. I don't.
Yeah.
It's hard for me.
It's a tough one out in our area, especially because the roads are. Mhm.
Okay. Modify street standards to avoid the use of curb and gutter wherever subsurface groundwater levels will allow. Use zero-scape drainage wells for low-impact stormwater flows.
1.
You get the water to the Great Salt Lake, you can just do these swells.
You'll get it there because really, even though it says they're not going to have to use underground piping, they're going to have to use underground piping. There's nowhere in Western Weber County where you'll get away without having piping underneath this. There's no way.
I know, I just have a hard.
So does our engineering. So it
They-
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Do they like curb and gutter also?
They do. Yeah.
They do.
They like, yeah, they like the efficiency. They like how much more water it can before it gets all drained down the road. So it's just a higher volume.
I think it's hard for me because my husband works for Weber County for the road department and he really would prefer curb and gutter all day long.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't like the swell, like where our subdivision is and where there's just a separation of the east and west side. We call it the east and the west side, right? And we have curb and gutter and they don't. And we laugh about it, but it's just a mess and then people fill it in and they're hard.
there.
And we got phragmites growing in the front yard, and then they want the weed department to come out and spray and kill. I mean, it's tough. It's a hard.
These are all the same things that
The-
our engineers have got.
What strikes me on this is it kind of leaves that more rural feel. Yep, now. We shouldn't have to, but I guess that thought is more a representation of folks that live out there than it is. And I realize that, but you
Maybe
know,
it should be tied to the density, so maybe that would be like. Or, like 1 acre plus lots, we can look into it. Or the acre, maybe. A lot of real estate,
a lot of hard surface.
a lot of hard surface. You know, roadside.
Yep, that's, I've been trying to work with the engineers on that too, and, it's there's a logical disconnect, because engineers are very math oriented, they're very practical, it's what's inside the box, what's in the table. And, when they heard me say that we're talking about trying to connect to the rural community character by continuing these design themes, even though the community won't actually be rural, they kind of giggled a little bit and said, what are we doing? We're trying to keep it rural when it's not rural. And I said, well, this is what the community has asked for.
Right.
And so this is the direction we're going.
You know, into the community character part, that is kind of the only part that you're gonna maybe be able to manipulate a little bit to still have that rural feel. That's kind of, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Urban gutter because of its efficiency myself, but at the same time, I also can see what other people's, what their thoughts are. The aesthetics of it, kind of keeping it a little bit the way it is. The problem is that everybody thinks that those aesthetics are like that now, but you've got a drainage. You can bury 3 cars on top of each other and see them from the road,
That's right.
so
Yeah. And the phragmites, yeah. That would read. Okay, as new development occurs, require the developer to install the new quote, rural street design provided in transportation action item 3.1.1, the one we just read. Adapt street design to mixed-use town center context at village intersections. Install turn pockets, fold-outs, traffic calming, and pedestrian and bicycle crossing in a manner that offers enhanced pedestrian safety and provides all users with pedestrian priority.
3.
Modify the county street cross sections to provide for the following right-of-way widths, and then we have it listed on. That you can't see.
Well,
You want more context to it?
well,
So right now, our cross sections, if we're looking at, for example, 2550 South is a good example. We are going about with under willing buyer, willing seller negotiations. We're acquiring an 80-foot right of way, but the plan suggests that be a 100-foot right of way. And so we've identified and classified each of our rights of way and put the minimum width for our future planning. In that manner. So basically, in my opinion, I think this should be bumped up pretty high. We should be changing our right of way standards to what we planned for as opposed to what it currently is.
I don't like it, that's-
1.
The Utah model of having really wide rights, while I can really appreciate the need to turn ox and wagon around on a U-turn on a street. I just like the rights of way because it gives a ton of flexibility. It's a hardscape that narrow and rural or slow speeds. Yep, that's exactly right. Gives you a little bit more real estate for those bike lanes.
It's a bike lane. It's a big wide road.
Good. Okay, pursue opportunities to expedite the installation of the corridor. Sorry, this is where we get specific, isn't it? Let me pull it up. number one. Heard of one from Wayne? One. Two. This, when the formatted version is done, it's gonna be pretty great. We do have a lot of people calling, saying, when is that gonna be online? They're on. Yep, Legacy Highway, okay. So this is about Legacy Highway. As development occurs, preserve a 230-foot right-of-way width for the entire highway corridor. Ensure any cross street installed prior to the installation of the highway provides efficient right-of-way to facilitate needed crossings or interchanges. Challenging. One.
Two.
So did we? 4.1?
We did just do that. And you voted one.
Wait a minute, I thought we read the one for the 230-foot right away.
Sorry. We just. Do you want to keep it at a one?
We're fine. We're good.
Still about Legacy Highway. Collaborate with Utah Department of Transportation to realign the proposed highway as depicted on map 10, streets and transit. That's where we kind of swing a little bit harder to the west to provide a little bit more space between the highway and the river to give a future village note there.
One.
Two.
As the corridor is installed, work with the Utah Department of Transportation to mitigate the barrier it will create between communities on the east and west of it.
No.
Neither side.
No.
Yeah. Well, if you're on the east side of the river, you get a little bit more there, coming up 5100. But where it swings, it's just at 3300 south. It swings pretty hard west, and then you don't have anything on your side.
Those, but all the way over to 3300 is for West Haven, basically.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't hit Western Weber County until it gets west, heading northwest. So it's a priority, but when do we have? So I'll give it 2, just because it is important, but it's. Yeah.
3.
3.
The corridor should be designed to be context sensitive as it passes through the village center, planned at or around the 1600-1800 south intersection.
Chicken rag 2.
2.
When streets are widened, extended, or lanes are added, balance traffic efficiencies with the community's future need for active transportation, pedestrian safety, neighborhood connectivity, and sense of, oh, I'm sorry, hang on a second. Provide multi-model main corridor along the 12th Street and 1800, 1600 South. No, sorry. I'm reading from the plan.
Oh.
This is principle number 5. Sorry.
He's backing up.
Sorry, looking in a different direction. So principle 3.5, provide a multi-model main corridor along the 12th Street and 1800/1600 South corridors that connect a string of village centers directly to the urbanized Wasatch Front. That's the principle that everything that is marked as 3.5 applies to. Okay. 5.1, so 3.5.1, when streets are widening,
That on their own.
Is it actually say widening? Okay. I'll get that fixed before we publish. When streets are widened, extended, or lanes added, balance traffic efficiencies with the community's future need for active transportation, pedestrian safety, neighborhood connectivity, and sense of place. Mitigate the creation of community barriers resulting from the street. Ensure enough right-of-way width is acquired to achieve these objectives. Plot Street and 1800, 1600.
Do.
5.2, anticipate and seek appropriate transit opportunities to link people along these corridors and regional destinations as provided in Transportation Goal 7. Stop transit.
Do.
It was just a long time.
I'm going with 4.
We had a recent meeting with Wasatch Front Regional Council on their long range plan, and a lot of our new facilities that we have planned in our general plan are on there, or they're adding to their long range plan and putting their own priorities on them based on actual data that they have pulled in terms of for projections, population projections, job projections, all that kind of stuff. Now, we had a good conversation today with them about that, telling them that their projections are wrong because they're using Gardner Institute data, and the Gardner Institute is using essentially county growth data, which is like 1%, 1 point something percent per year, as opposed to what we're actually seeing out west, which is 7 or 8% per year. Smaller denominator, easier to get a higher percentage for now, but if we grow like West Haven has been growing by adding a bunch of vacant lots, we could see potentially 700 new people per year added to the population. So yep. That it was the subject of a conversation with UDOT and WFRC this morning or this afternoon. It was that, I mean, they were talking about needing proven data, actual real transportation costs, or sorry, transportation numbers to justify investing in certain corridors. And when we say investing, we're actually saying prioritizing this corridor over another corridor that actually have traffic counts, and that we just don't have the counts. And we're saying, well, do you want to wait until we put a bunch of houses along that right of way? Do you want to wait until you're going to be condemning things, or should we get ahead of it? And we said, well, we get your point, but I understand the way that they work. Why build a freeway that goes to nothing on the hope that it'll create a village area? So we're kind of saying if you build it, they will come. They're saying, show us a little bit of effort to create a village before we do it.
So, and then to that point, or sets for what the county's going to do. So that's kind of how I've been grading these, is because of the fact that the county's probably going to have to take a first step here.
And our argument to them was, we've already taken the first step. We added the third lane from 4,700 and beyond. Why don't you fix it between 1,900 and 4,700? To their point, you don't need a turning lane if you have a railroad track on the side of the road and no other ability to cross. So,
But there's not always a train on that track.
it's true.
Right. That's all, but the right away.
2550, the 80 feet versus 100 feet. One of the things that I think is important, we're going to run a plan in that, to make it clear that even though we're planning for, if it's county initiated or state initiated, that it's going to be whatever the need is in the moment, and then we'll just expand it. And then we'll make it also clear that our setback requirement, 50, it's 100 feet. So your setback for all the building, 30 feet from that 50-foot half. That way we're not house. But when a developer comes in, with general plan standard, not using more of the taxpayers' dollars, then that's necessary at the moment, but getting dedication from developers, because as they grow, we'll definitely need that 100 feet. We shouldn't, all the other taxpayers shouldn't have to pay to create a 100-foot right of way. So kind of better understanding of how it's working.
So on that one, there's that maybe planned. Be a state road at some.
Yes.
Street or the top of 2550, whatever.
Yes. Yep, exactly. Anywhere where you've got a collector or arterial road that connects up. Yeah. And that one's planned to be a minor arterial road, or excuse me, major collector road. That's what we're talking about. Okay. 3.5.3, take advantage of the opportunity to create a 21st century minor arterial street on that part of 1800 and 1600 South corridor that is west of 4700 West. Ensure it is designed at human scale, providing multi-model opportunities, paying tribute to the agricultural character of the area, but setting compact, walkable places. Consider funding mechanisms that will not be a tax burden on existing property owners. Great. Along the 1800-1600 South corridor, support the planned new link through West Haven that connects the existing 1800 South directly to 2100 South Wilson Lane, giving a direct access to the I-15 interchange.
Two.
That one's easy to prioritize because all we're doing is supporting. Good job, guys. Good job, Westwood. Okay, establish primary industrial and freight access by creating a loop to Wasatch Front transportation spine to north and south so by means of North Legacy Highway corridor. Preserve at least 230 feet of width for this corridor for the possible future conversion to a limited access freeway. Just make sure that .6 out 38, sorry, 80 feet. Still. Yep. Yeah, so 3.6 is preserving a right-of-way corridor on 8300 West. Is that still a one? Wayne?
Yes.
Two.
So all sixes, there's a 1, 2, 3.6.2, still 8300. Initially, design 8300 West to support walkable commercial and office development. Consider creating 2 one-way streets that anchor the edge of the right-of-way on both sides, with a large landscape parkway between the two. When the street merits a limited access freeway, utilize the landscape parkway area.
Four.
3.
Got our 1, 2, 3.
There we go.
It's kind of like throwing a dart, seeing where it sticks. Initially, design 8300 West. Nope, just read that one. So 3.7. This is the 3600 West corridor. The principle is that it is an important north-south corridor. that can link West Haven and Plymouth. Action item 3.7.1, ensure that as development occurs, 3600 West is widened to an appropriate and safe standard.
Two.
As development occurs, ensure dedication of 3600 West is received from the developer to extend it to the Weaver River. Collaborate with Marriott Slaterville and Plain City to build consensus on its alignment and connection to and through each city.
One.
Use a series of streets and pathway network typologies. Oh, sorry, this is 4.3.1. The goal is plan, design, and build connected street and pathway networks. And 4.3 is create connected streets for all land use contexts. Action item number 1 of that is use a series of streets and pathway network typologies to guide and promote connected networks for different land use contexts. Larger lot residential, smaller lot residential, and commercial areas will need to have different size blocks and style of street networks, but they can all be connected. These typologies can be flexibly applied depending on the type of land use and lot sizes.
Two.
Mix it up a little, guys. Okay. Collaborate with the Utah Department of Transportation as the state's railroad crossing authority to provide essential railroad crossings. Collaborate with UDOT. UDOT is the authority over road crossing.
You better take them to lunch.
Yeah, really. Okay, good. Yeah, and asking the question costs a lot. Just asking them a question about development or crossing rate costs a lot. It's like $25,000 people's application for their consideration. It's very expensive. Okay, 5.1.2. Sorry. Goal 5 is connect communities and transportation infrastructure across permanent barriers. And principle 5.1 is provide for critical vehicle transit and transportation across of the Union Railway. Okay. So 1.2, pursue funding for bridge infrastructure to cross the railroad where denoted on map 10. And where otherwise specified in this plan or where deemed appropriate by the
Was that on the map?
there's actually quite a few crossings. So we had we kept 75 at grade. 8300 was definitely a bridge. We had 5100 was a bridge. 4700 was at grade. I think there was also a 5500 that was a bridge. Excuse me. 5100 was still at grade. So all the existing at grade were just intended to keep at grade, and then 5500 with a bridge. 4300 had a bridge, which would have to span 12th Street as well if we put it in. I want to say there was one more bridge in between there too. Yes. No, that would definitely be a bridge as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about. You can hear my voice. Jen is the best. No, just ask the question. Yeah, that's right. That's what I used to say to my mom whenever my little brother complained. I'm not touching them. I feel like I quote The Simpsons a little bit too much in these meetings, but one of my favorite is when Bart is doing this, saying it's not my fault if she runs into it.
I put a one.
Okay.
One.
Okay. Consider bridging other existing at-grade crossings where appropriate. When bridging an existing crossing, work with the railroad to retain the opportunity to place a new at-grade crossing elsewhere. Pipe dream, but maybe. It's something. Never mind. It's not a pipe dream. It's a head in the cloud dream, but maybe if we use the pipe enough, it'll work. Wayne? One. Two.
One.
When approving new development, ensure alternative means of egress is provided that will not result in significantly more traffic or at-grade crossings.
One.
That is a high priority for development. In fact, as soon as they claim, as soon as our development approvals have reached a threshold that goes above what they consider relatively normal crossing traffic, that we are responsible for paying them essentially. Now, I don't know how they enforce that, nor do I know how they take the numbers. Maybe they just go and count the crossings and say, well, you guys approved all this development, I do. But the railroad, basically. Yeah, well, and honestly, I don't know that they actually track land use decisions to verify what is actually causing the extra traffic. So maybe at some point in time, they'll come to the county and say, hey, fix this problem. They'll say, oh, that's your railroad. But from then on out, if we do it that way, then on out, they will pay very close attention to every decision we make thereafter. So it's kind of one of those chicken and egg issues as well. 6.1.1. So first off, goal 6, while vehicle travel is important, the transportation network should be designed and constructed for all people, not just those in private vehicles. Principle 6.1 is create human scale street infrastructure with active transportation facilities along all street types. Okay. 6.1.1 accommodate accessibility under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Probably federal money for sure and possibly state money.
It gets a little weird when we're talking about rural streets. Yeah, I mean, if we could say that we've got a safe shoulder to use, it's not, you're not prioritizing at that point. You're just a common. And not all street crossings have to be available. It's just you need to provide reasonable accommodation. Now, I would argue that anywhere a person can cross, anywhere an ambulatory person can cross, I should be able to cross if I'm in. But Ogden City is really faced with this issue. They're going around after, I think something happened where they are going around to every intersection and actually putting wheelchair ramps in. I would assert most of them they're installing incorrectly because they're pointing the wheelchair person out into the right of way. They're not putting the truncated domes perpendicular to where you should be going, right? So if you were, well, it's not a wheelchair person at that point, it's the blind person. If you were to use the stick and run over those domes, it's going to feel like you're pushed out the intersection. But anyway, gets a little weird for us until we start creating urbanized areas. When we do start creating urbanized areas, that is that would require.
That's either. Wheelchair.
Think about,
In an area. Yes.
Yes. But should that be a priority? There you go.
that's the question.
Did you already? Agree with that, but. So,
I'm going with Wayne. I'm going one.
there you go. There you go. Twos all the way across.
Those with those for you.
This is something actually we're debating right now in 3500. We know UDOT would like to make improvements to 3500 Close Street and the railroad included. And we started talking a little bit about, well, what is it that we prioritize? And when you're talking about cutting funding, that's one of the first things on the transportation network that get cut. And it's the pedestrian accessibility, because the car is the most important, because we haven't created it that's pedestrian accessible. And so as we're looking at how much it's going to cost to improve that railroad crossing, are we actually going to provide a shelter for active transportation, pedestrians, mounted strollers, or wheelchair users to cross it? Right now, it kind of sounds like no, but let's see what comes out.
Easy to cross that road unless you got a light there.
That's exactly, they're debating whether or not they're going to put a light.
Cross anything.
Yeah.
You don't even want to cross it in your car.
Right. Yeah.
I don't care how fast your Jazzy is.
You're not making it now.
Okay, ensure safe street crossings and intersections.
That's kind of a given, yeah, one.
One.
You want to ride home tonight or what? You want to walk?
Wayne, I go that direction. I'll give you a ride.
I've only got one thing to say.
In another life,
Remember that crossing?
Yeah.
Oh,
All right,
did you
let's
get-
go. Let's go.
Okay.
Get her done.
7.1.1, as development occurs, so this is applicable to,
One before it. You just do it.
It's really small.
Yeah. You know,
Still awake.
let's just see if I'm still awake. In fact, we got a 6.2.1 and a 6.2.2 that I missed. Okay, so let's start with the one that I did get. Use a series of street and pathway network typologies to guide and promote connected networks for different land use contexts. Wayne?
Two.
I'm going to read to you one that I missed, sorry. At 6.2.2, establish a system of guidance for how street design can adapt to context while achieving the other transportation goals and principles of connectivity, human scale, compact and orderly growth, and regional access. So creating a essentially adaptive what's the word? When streets evolve, creating a way for it to evolve so that we can get to a final product that doesn't require yeah.
One.
One.
Yes. And the other one was 6.2.2. Okay. Goal 7, support transit corridors that connect village areas and commercial industrial areas with the greater urbanized Wasatch Front. Principle 7.1, utilize the existing rail corridor or area immediately adjacent to it to preserve space for future light rail transit. Okay, 7.1.1. As development occurs along the Union Pacific Rail Corridor, ensure 60-foot wide right-of-way is exacted from the developer for future light rail. Explore with adjacent cities how this transit corridor can efficiently connect to the Ogden Transit Station. Let's start with
I like that, but I just have a question. Who owns that property?
we're talking about on the south.
Oh, you're talking.
Okay.
One.
Two. I have one quick question. So never mind, it doesn't matter. Go.
Sure. Okay. Okay. As the area's population grows, work with the Utah Department of Transportation and the Utah Transit Authority to provide permanent transit facilities within this right of way.
Three.
Work with the Utah Department of Transportation, Utah Transit Authority, and Union Pacific Railroad to provide frequent pedestrian bridges over the Union Pacific Railroad to connect transit stations on the south side of Union Pacific's rail line to commercial and residential areas on the north. This is just pedestrian bridges.
Two.
Until permanent transit facilities are constructed, utilize this public right-of-way as an active transportation right-of-way. Pursue the installation of the pedestrian bridges mentioned in the previous item to provide safe crossings across the Pacific Rail line from the 12th Street corridor.
Two.
Plan for future transit-oriented development along this corridor.
Two.
If an airport is supported in the planning area, preserve a transit corridor to the future airport property.
One.
Five.
It could be, so it's both. I think there's in the write-up, we're talking a little bit about, let's just preserve the corridor, whatever transit option. I mean, we may be talking about a tube that shoots you to your destination. The Elon Musk tube. That's right. So just providing the corridor. Goal 8 is provide for a new commercial and freight airport in the planning area.
I drew it on a map one. But I don't know that it ever goes into the.
Commissioner Jenkins specifically asked us to not address it, but I'm just going to read it here. Let's read and rank it. I'll delete it. I've got to go back to the final document and verify that our consultants actually put the final version. Okay, so it's about an airport out west. 8.1 is planned for a new airport west of 8300 West. 8.1.1. Conduct an airport facilities analysis to determine the best location and configuration of runways and other airport facilities Based on the results, select a site and preserve it until the market will support a new airport.
Fine.
Go back on that one.
8.1.2, conduct a market analysis to determine at what point the market will support the creation of a new airport.
I, say seven.
You save some money.
Get transportation. When I was a kid, the Salt Lake Airport. I mean, as far as from freeway down.
The next item doesn't have a number, but it's 9.1.1. And goal 9 is in the Uinta Highlands, provide for better infrastructure completion and connectivity. And principle 9.1 is provide a better street connection. Provide better street connections when remaining undeveloped or underdeveloped parcels are developed. Okay, 9.1.1, in the event preservation of land for each park as provided in the Parks and Recreation action items is not successful, implement street connectivity during the development of vacant parcels based on conceptual connections shown on maps. Shown on the maps. Yes. Your time.
You're up.
You 3. Principle 9.2, provide better safety support for all users of County Drive. 2.1, create a multi-use street side pathway that runs the length of Comby Drive. Coordinate with Uinta City and South Ogden City to execute. We are in discussions right now with a developer who wants to develop a piece right on Comby. So we did,
Oh,
yes, we did mention to them this requirement and they said, you know how expensive the rest of that pathway is going to be to buy all that right of way and then remove the hillside that it's on. So yeah, we've talked about it, but we're fine. So, prepared. Part of the right of way, right? Principle 9.2, provide. Oh, you already moved that. Sorry, I read it. 2.2, at blind intersections, install four-way stops to calm traffic and speeds. Install a user-activated rapid flashing beacon system for the intersections of Comby Drive and 5950 South and Regency Drive. Two. Okay. Ooh, one more. Install missing sidewalk and curb and gutter segments along the streets west of Comby Drive. Take your time. We got another 15 minutes before we have to leave.
Two.
Awesome. You guys, appreciate it. We'll cover the rest next week. Or I guess it's 2 weeks.
That was very helpful. I'm sorry. No, it was grueling, but that was good.
It's also a lot more fun for me to do it with you guys than by myself, because in a vacuum, I can say what I think is a priority, but better to hear from the community.
When I started looking through your number, I just did it, kind of trying not to look. You, and it was like, so like I said. Contact. I will try. I tried this time.
Well, and I told you guys I would send you the Excel spreadsheet, and I failed to do that, so I'm sorry. I actually saw that, and it was awesome because I could just copy and paste. But I'll send that spreadsheet out to you guys. If you want to fill it in that way, you can. Thank you.
Really? Oh, complete turnaround.